A new study finds that far more people are in harm's way as they move into high flood zones around the world, and that's adding to an increase in watery disasters from climate change. The study published in Wednesday's journal Nature looked at the world's settlements since 1985 using satellite data. It found that the number in the riskiest flood zones has increased by 122%, compared to an 80% increase in the safest areas. An author of the study said urban migration plays a big part in the change as people seeking better lives move to cities and often get stuck in risky areas because that's what they can afford. Russia says it has foiled a major Ukraine drone attack as concerns grow over Kyiv's weapons supplies. 3 scientists win Nobel in chemistry for quantum dots research used in electronics, medical imaging. Biden tries to reassure allies of continued U.S. support for Ukraine after Congress drops aid request, and more. Today on the Dunkley Report. Russia says its air defenses shot down 31 Ukrainian drones in a nighttime attack on border regions. The Russian Defense Ministry reported the attack Wednesday. It appears to be Kyiv's largest single cross-border drone assault reported by Moscow since the Kremlin launched its invasion 20 months ago. The Defense Ministry did not provide any evidence for its claims, nor any details about whether there were any damage or casualties. It also said Russian aircraft thwarted a Ukrainian attempt to deploy a group of soldiers by sea to the western side of Russian-annexed Crimea. Ukraine is pressing on with a slow-moving counteroffensive it launched 3 months ago. 3 scientists in the United States have won the Nobel Prize in chemistry for their work on quantum dots. Those are particles just a few nanometers in diameter that can release very bright colored light and are used in electronics and medical imaging. Mungi Bawendi, Louis Bruce, and Alexei Ekimov were honored Wednesday for their work with the tiny particles, whose real-life applications include television screens and LED lamps. Quantum dots electrons have constrained movement, which affects how they absorb and release visible light. The very bright colors also are used to identify tumors. The suspense surrounding the announcement took an unusual turn when Swedish media reported the names of the winners several hours early. The White House says President Joe Biden has been in touch with U.S. allies and partners to discuss continued support for Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Tuesday's conversation came after Biden signed legislation late Saturday to keep the U.S. government funded. The bill did not include billions in aid for Ukraine that he had requested. The Republican-controlled House dropped the Ukraine aid request as a concession to growing opposition among GOP lawmakers. Poland's president told reporters after the call that Biden assured the leaders that backing exists for continuing U.S. support to Ukraine. Italy has launched an investigation after a fully electric-powered bus with foreign tourists veered off a busy overpass on the Venetian mainland during rush hour. 21 people were killed. The bus, with 35 tourists on board, crashed through a guardrail and a rusted fence on Tuesday night and plunged more than 10 meters, 30 feet, to land upside down. The driver was among those killed and 15 people were injured. The bus was just a year old. The 40-year-old driver had an untarnished record and had just started his shift. Venice's mayor called the crash inexplicable, while the regional governor suggested the driver may have fallen ill. 2 Philippine supply boats have breached a Chinese Coast Guard blockade in the South China Sea in a recurring confrontation near a disputed shoal. Some fear could spark a larger security crisis that could draw in the United States. 2 Philippine Coast Guard ships escorted the smaller supply boats on Wednesday, but it wasn't immediately clear whether the ships were blocked by the Chinese Coast Guard from coming closer to the second Thomas Shoal. A small contingent of Filipino Marines has stood guard there for years, aboard a long, marooned, but still actively commissioned warship. China also claims the shoal and has surrounded it with its Coast Guard ships and militia vessels in a years-long standoff. Pope Francis is shaming and challenging world leaders to take concrete action to slow climate change before it's too late. In an update to his landmark 2015 encyclical, he's warning that God's increasingly warming creation is fast reaching a point of no return. The document, Praise God, was released Wednesday on the feast of St. Francis of Assisi, the pontiff's nature-loving namesake. It's aimed at spurring negotiators to commit to binding climate targets at the next round of UN talks in Dubai. He made a moral imperative for the world to transition away from fossil fuels to clean energy with measures that are efficient, obligatory, and readily monitored. Kenyan lawmakers say that parliamentary approval is required before the deployment of police to the Kenya-led peacekeeping mission in Haiti to combat gang violence that was approved by the UN Security Council this week. Opposition lawmaker Anthony Oluoch told a session of Parliament's lower house on Wednesday that the conditions for foreign deployment hadn't been met under the National Police Act. He also said that the country's security needs ought to take first precedence before any foreign commitments. He was alluding to the internal attacks by the East Africa-based Al-Shabaab extremist group, which has links to Al-Qaeda. Facing a likely roadblock from House Republicans on aid for Ukraine, President Joe Biden said Wednesday he's planning to give a major speech on the issue and hinted there may be another means to support Kyiv if Congress balks. Biden told a group of reporters after giving remarks at the White House that, "I'm going to be announcing very shortly a major speech I'm going to make on this issue and why it's critically important for the United States and our allies that we keep our commitment to Ukraine." Israeli police say they have arrested several people suspected of spitting in the direction of Christian pilgrims and churches in Jerusalem. The incident comes as religious tensions have flared in the contested capital that the 3 Abrahamic faiths consider holy. The police said they arrested 5 people accused of spitting toward churches on Wednesday. Footage captured earlier in the week that shows ultra-Orthodox Jews spitting at the feet of foreign Christian worshippers in the old city of Jerusalem had triggered outrage and stirred concerns of rising intolerance among religious Jews. The government on Tuesday offered a rare condemnation of the incident. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Thursday, October 5th, 2023. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.